Good morning, everyone, and thank you for being here. My name is, as you can see, is Cristiano Bianchi. I'm Keepthinking. I'll tell you very briefly who we are, but I want to start with a few images, which are the topic of this presentation. These are tornadoes. These are all American images. This is tornado in the United States. I have no idea what this is or where this is, but it looks amazing. Washington, D.C. Now, this presentation is about a specific project. We are a company from London with small offices in New York and Hong Kong that does digital applications for arts and culture. And we've been doing this for 14 years. We only do this, and we are lucky to work with some very exciting clients, such as these ones. We have clients a bit all over the place. They are mostly in the UK because we are UK based, but we are in Canada, in USA, in Hong Kong. And what the I'm not from the UK, I'm from Italy, and what the United Kingdom called Europe, despite the fact that they are part of it, but we call it continental Europe. And we're doing fairly well. Last year we won the overall best of the web award for a project I'm presenting tomorrow morning, not this particular one. This is just launched, so we haven't yet presented it. This specific project is about crowdsourcing and tagging images, and it tries to answer 4 or 5 questions. And the questions that we try to answer is that is a problem that probably a lot of you have as well, which is that we have a lot of beautiful imagery and digital assets, but often we don't have a lot of metadata that goes with it. So it's very difficult to find what we're looking for. And we don't have the resources to create this metadata. The second question that we try to answer is, how does the world change? What has happened between the time these pictures were taken and today? What is the impact on the planet, and what happens to building after they've been built and after they've been maintained or left? Can we do something? Can we catalog endangered building, at least if we know that they exist, if we know what they are, and we actually spark interest by creating engagement with them? And is there a way to actually preserve the memory of buildings that have gone, or environments have gone? This is Penn Station in New York. Of course, it doesn't look anything like this anymore. So this project has 2 main components. The first one is the University of Oxford, specifically the Archaeology Department at University of Oxford. Although the images that we are using are not so much or only archaeology, they are general environmental images, and there's a lot of them. Basically, what happened is that they discovered that they had a cabinet of slides containing about 40,000 images that date from 1890 to 1930, and they come from probably 100. I put 20 because this is what we have online at the moment, but they probably come from 150 different destinations or countries. And often, the only thing that they have on these images is what's written on the frame, which is next to nothing. Sometimes there are locations, sometimes there isn't a location. So what we've done with them over the last 9 months, the project launched in June, it's to create a website that I'll show you and a mobile application that I'll tell you about. This is the website. So you go in, and I'm keen to go through the slides as quickly as I can, simply because I would like to show you the real thing, which is much more interesting than this. But this, I won't have time to go through everything, so I have a few screens. So this is a website. What it looks like, you have to log in, and we, in terms of users, we decided to use Zooniverse, which is an open API, so you actually can tap into the users. If you're registered for Zooniverse, which is a massive crowdsourcing project from University of Oxford and University of Chicago, you can actually, the users don't have to re-register. They can use their login, and we tap into this user base. So when we create new user, we create them on Zooniverse directly. So how does it work? You can pick a destination, or you can decide to go randomly. At the moment, we have 11,000 images online. There will be 40,000 very soon. And as you can see, you have different types of images, different number of images for each destination. So you can decide to explore England, or Greece, or Italy, India, Libya. We have about 300 from the 300 images from the United States. There's a little bit of a engagement gaming aspect, which is that the more you work, the more you tag, the faster you travel. Your icon becomes a different icon. So we know what type of user you are, whether it's someone that's really engaged and travel by flying carpet or travel by foot because you just started. And when you move up the hierarchy, you will increase that. And this is, for instance, this is one of the destinations where we actually see who's using this destination in what way. How does it work? You go in, you either pick a destination or random image, and this is what you get. You can zoom, you can actually see this image in detail. It's fairly high resolution, probably 4,000 by 4,000 pixels, so you can actually go in quite a lot of detail. And what we're asking you to do is to tag it. This is the data that we have about it, so this is scrolling down the screen. This is the data that we have. In some cases we have more, in some cases less. In this case we have very little, as you can see. And then you can go in and select icons from the left, go in and tag. And tagging is actually tagging specific points, specific icons, and you can actually then select what it is and add more information if you know anything else. You can also discuss this image, so you can actually go out and say, now I want to say something about this one, and someone here pointed out this is the Scuola Grande San Marco in Venice. This discussion are supposed to have their own life, and there are some trending discussion, but there are some very keen archaeology geeks. They complain if the site is offline for half a day, so because we are doing something with this. So there's quite a following. And bear in mind that we only softly launched in 3 months, but we haven't advertised it at all. Our University of Oxford has not yet promoted this. We want you to know what you've done, so this is what I have tagged. These are all my, I'm not an archaeology geek, so I have only tagged 4 images, but there are people that have tagged hundreds already. And this is the second part of what we are trying to do, which is to ask people to go back where these images were taken at the time, if we know where they were taken, or sometimes people can suggest where they were taken, and rephotograph what it looks like today. So for that there is a mobile app, which is this one, so we can actually use the same login, and by default, if you log in, if you download the login, it will find images which are around you, which I don't believe there are any in Minnesota, but if you are in other places, there are quite a few. Or you can search for location as well, because you might plan to go on holiday and see what you want to take pictures of. Then you can take a picture, or you can upload an existing picture because you might have taken the picture before. And it's quite sophisticated because you can actually have the background of the image that you want to rephotograph and have a slide that with change in transparency, and then you take the image and upload it. There's only one of these because it's quite a complex thing that happens behind the scene, because they have all of their information in a bespoke system which is called Archidams. And we have our own database, which is called QI, which is our collections management system. And then all of this data needs to be exchanged and then used by the public interface. So what is blue is what comes out of the dams, and what is red is what goes back in. So all the information is stored back. This I'll tell you about this a little bit in a little while. What I wanted to show you is actually what it looks like. So at the moment I'm logged in. And if I simply, you can go to destinations and see what I have. So if I go to the United States, I will get the picture, which doesn't look from the United States, of course. Because I keep being logged out, and when I'm logged out, I go through the tutorial. I didn't know you had Stonehenge in the United States. That's a different story.
There's one thing called
Foamhenge, which is made of. So let's try again, now that I should be logged in. We were told to ask what's wrong with the conference. We need to improve the speed of wireless, don't we? This is not working. But I'm showing you this, and I just wanted to show you what happens behind the scenes. And basically everything that is captured, this is one of the destinations. This is one of the assets, and as you can see, one of the assets is linked to a discussion, is linked to other classification that people have done, so you actually have the data straight away as soon as people make connections. And you can edit all the tags, so you can have, they can add new types of tags, they can add new subtags, and so on and so forth. I know it's time for questions. I'll close in a minute. I just want to see if I can show you this. So there's a forest and woodland. I can choose that, then go in and tag, and I can actually be more specific about what I want to do. And done. Interim results before the questions. 3 months going. We have 319 images have been completely tagged, so they're finished. And that means that they have more than 3 people looking at them and tagging them. We have 1,600 tag in action and 2,500 actual classifications, because the tag in action might include more than one tag. 276 discussions with 444 comments, 117 active people, and only 15 images have been uploaded, because it's quite difficult to find these places. So give it a go, and if you have any questions, please ask. Thank you.
So there's a project on this side of the pond called Rephoto, which allows users to create their own projects. So there's like a biologist that goes out and takes pictures of turtle shells and then tries to match them up to make sure he gets the same turtle.
Yeah.
And then how it grows over time.
I'm aware of that project. We looked at it when we developed this one.
So did your technology come through Zooniverse, or did you?
Only the logging comes through Zooniverse, because Zooniverse had quite a different agenda from what we had. And in order for us to work more closely with Zooniverse, we talk to them. We know them very well, because we've done other projects with them. But they said, yes, you can use our login, you can use our API, but we are not able to help you in any other way. This is why we couldn't use their technology. Because now they've released, as you know, an open source. No, it's not open source, but they have a service to create tagging websites as well.
Yeah.
But what we couldn't find was the ability to link the two. So the Zooniverse with the rephotography thing. Because the rephotography is only rephotography, which is only part of this. But actually, this is much more than that.
Right. So the Rephoto project doesn't have the
tagging. Yeah.
So is your system extensible so that I could add my own project?
Absolutely. It's totally abstract. There's nothing to do with the archaeology. I can show you if you want. But come and see me. We have a booth in the hall.
Sure.
Totally configurable.
Yes.
Go ahead and plug your own.
Thank you again.
Hi everyone, good morning. You can see my desktop, it's really embarrassing. Okay, so I'm from the Broad. We're a new contemporary art museum in downtown Los Angeles. And I'm Heather, if you don't know me. I'm the director of IT there, which is an all-inclusive title. So that includes digital media as well as fixing your printer. So whatever you need. This is just a picture of the Broad, a little bit of context. We've been working on opening for the past few years, and we just opened in September. And so when we were approaching our mobile app, we were thinking of it more as something that that's sort of expected, and that people are going to want to have, or a certain subset of people will want to have. And we don't have any docents or volunteers or structured tours. So the only real way for people who are really craving deep or didactic content is a self-guided tour, at least right now. So we needed to have a vehicle for those and sort of a good way of delivering those to people. And so another thing we were thinking about was sort of how can we take a normal museum kind of standard vanilla app and sort of make it make it something useful, make it somehow have a value other than we have an app, download it. And so one of the things, this is a kind of a cute little video. Oh, sorry, I didn't realize there would be sound. This is just a video someone made of the museum so you can kind of see what it's like. And so we're trying to envision what it could be, and so we sort of thought it would be best if it's useful in that you can have your ticketing account and your website account and everything integrated there and have a single identity, be able to scan your ticket like a mobile boarding pass, and then for the content to be served to you. So instead of for you having to go and look for, what content might be here in this area of the museum, to use beacons and location technology to first, when you arrive at the museum, say, hey, welcome to the museum, you're here, here's your ticket, you don't have to go digging for it, it's here. And then when you're in the galleries, it can pop up and say, oh, by the way, there's a tour stop right here you might be interested in taking. We have an architecture tour, which was a big challenge in that there's no physical place for us to sign the fact that we have an architecture tour. Everyone is very sensitive to the beauty of our architecture right now. We're not allowed to have any signs, any stanchions, anything that's not beautiful. And so we really needed the app to be able to pop that content out to people and say, hey, learn about this architecture. What are these crazy skylights? We have content you might be interested in. So first of all was content. I know this is ostensibly about the technology of the mobile app, but in my former life, I was a journalism student and a writer, and so for us it was like, if the content isn't good, it's not going to matter. The fact that we have these cool contextual awareness, location aware beacons and all of that stuff. So we spent a lot of time on content. We have a small team, so I work directly with the curators to kind of decide what tours we should have, how those should be structured, write them, gather other materials for it, and finally put them together. One thing we're particularly proud of is we had LeVar Burton do our children's tour. So you guys should all download our app right now and listen to some of his tours. I put one in here, but I think we probably don't have time to listen to it. Another one, we have a more adulty tour. I'll just play a second of it if I can. Oh, maybe I can't. Oh. It's really good. This is about Mike Kelly. I don't know if you guys are into contemporary art at all, but this is a Mike Kelly piece. And we actually got a bunch of artists in our collection to talk about other artists in the collection. So we have Sterling Ruby speaking about Mike Kelly, who was actually, Sterling was Mike's studio assistant for many, many years. So knew Mike personally very well. And so you really get this kind of personal touch. And it starts with this great quote by Mike Kelly saying that the purpose of art is to fuck shit up. So going back to the app, once we had all this great content, we needed to be able to serve it up to people. We spent a lot of time wireframing this, thinking about, the ideal way to make it as simple as possible, to remove as many interim screens as possible. These are sort of our contextually aware ideas for a landing page. So if you were to download the app right now, you're not there, so you're only going to get the external experience. But we are working towards adding even more of these. So if you're there but you're early and you have an hour to kill, it's not your time yet, we'll suggest that you go over to a museum across the street, or here's a place you may want to get lunch, or a tour of the Grand Avenue architecture. There's other interesting architecture on the same street. So we just spent a lot of time going back and forth on this, probably more than we should have. But it's really easy to get into the weeds in here, because when the possibilities are wide open, trying to focus yourself and remember what's really important. So in the end, what was really important to us was just keeping it tight, keeping it simple. If in doubt, just give people like the 5 menu options that they would want. Here are some other. These are iterations. This isn't the menu we went with, for example, but this is an example of your ticket in the app. So you can reserve your ticket online in advance, and then you can sign into the app and it'll be on your app. We give people lots of options. They can print it out, they can scan it from their email, we can scan it from this. we can look them up by name if they don't know like how to print or use email. So a lot of options for people trying to make their experience nice. We don't have a ton of events yet. So right now, since we just opened, our main thing is general admission, but eventually we'll have, there's a tour happening right now, or, 10 minutes, come to this talk, that kind of thing. And then sort of a separate talk, but we developed a semi-custom ticketing system to ticket, and then because it happened to be the same developer building our app, we've been able to really, really make that a super tight integration so that, people can register for the ticketing, buy it through the app, and even though not everyone downloads the app, for us it's really useful to track people if they do, because we have so much more data than if they just buy a ticket online or if they just show up. If we can get them to download the app, we know how long they stayed, we know what they looked at, we know where they were, and so we're really trying to encourage as many people, give people a reason to download and then encourage them. This is one of our lovely spreadsheets when we were working through how we would want contextual awareness to work. This originally was much larger, many more options, and this is a paring down. In terms of location awareness, we have some challenges because we have this beautiful ceiling in our main gallery space, and the director would just die if there were any beacons, even tiny, small. You can't even see them white. We'll paint them the same color. Doesn't matter. Can't do it. So we haven't been able to get to blue dot location awareness in the galleries yet, but we do have beacons under the floor in all of the galleries, and so we can do kind of your general area is this, and we have an interactive map in the app. One thing that's a little bit different on our tours is we don't have like a dial by number. And we thought a lot about that, and we may go back to it, but our idea was that we were trying to try something new. This was our opportunity to be brand new, to try to push the envelope, and I don't know whether it's going to work out in the end. We were hoping that it would be clear enough through beacons and everything, or just for searching for the artwork for people to be able to find it, but I don't know. I think we may go back to it. These are just some screenshots of our app. You can download it, and it'll be much more clear. This is our interactive map. If you were to zoom in, you'll see little icons of where all of the artwork is so that you could orient yourself and then find more information on a given artwork. So if you were to select Barbara Krieger's Your Body is a Battleground, you'll get the basic information from our website on the work, as well as this particular stop has an audio tour as well as some audio tour supporting material. We've also included full transcripts for all of the audio tours for accessibility and people who don't have headphones. And then that's about it. We've had some good reviews of our tours and our app and our overall experience at the Broad. We try to be very welcoming, very open. So we've had sort of a lot more families than you would expect in a contemporary art museum, considering the number of penises everywhere. So that's been really positive, and I hope that some of what we've done as a part of that. This was an article we were very proud of. This is very small, but basically this was an article about how our app is cool, and the number one thing that was great about it was the quality of the content, which also made our curators very happy. So our next steps will be to just build on this platform that we've built. So we need to add more kind of contextual awareness. We were very sensitive when we were building it. We didn't want to do push notifications. We didn't want to be annoying. We didn't want people to be like, they're creepy and all of this stuff. But I think we may move slightly further in the creep direction. I don't know that the in-app notifications are enough. I think we may have to do a couple of pushes so people understand what's going on. But we're just going to continue to iterate on this, and hopefully in like 6 months, we will be at a really good point in, you know, understanding the content that people want and getting it to them at the time that they want it. Any questions?
Yes. So you're talking about the challenge of bringing iBeacons in or beacons in to your place. How accurate do you want it to be?
Well, so our galleries are a little bit crowded. All of our work is giant, pretty much, which helps in terms of locating you specifically in front of an artwork, but we have some rooms that have a lot of small stuff, and so it wouldn't be clear if we can just know that you're in that room. We may have several tour stops in that room. It's not quite enough, but I think we'll do as good as we can, and having notifications for every single tour stop, since there are about 60, would be overwhelming, so we have to kind of try to walk the line, and the way that we do that now is we just only have beacons in certain places, and so those are the things that get pushes. But eventually we are hoping that the preciousness about the architecture will break down slightly, and that, you know, we could put a little tiny white invisible beacon, you know, somewhere, and then we could really track accurately exactly where somebody is. But
so you're totally relying on people having Bluetooth on. Like if somebody comes in and they just don't want to turn Bluetooth on
right,
for whatever reason,
they can still browse the map. They won't get the pushes, but they can locate themselves. They can see the content, and then we've submitted to be part of Apple's interior mapping, and you know, we have Wi-Fi that could theoretically do triangulation if that ever becomes a viable technology, but I think it's, at this point, we just train our visitor services people. They are incredibly highly trained, which is a whole other discussion you should come to tomorrow, but they, you know, are trained to like teach people how to use the app, help them use the app if they don't use it. Just go ahead and pull it up on their own device if, you know, people can't figure it out. So it is a weakness, though, definitely.
What kind of, before you started doing it, what kind of external influences were you looking at for the app? What sort of lessons did you learn from other people that felt fire? How influenced what you were trying to build?
Yeah, like who were we inspired by, kind of?
Yeah.
Well, we downloaded all of the major apps. I mean, our institution being new is a little insecure, so it's always like, what is MoMA doing? And so, you know, we would download all of those, and there were some that the director really loved, and they were very image heavy, beautiful, you know, stuff flying around and stuff like that. And so me and the communications people are coming more from a usability side, and so we tried to bring that together, and we actually looked more at apps that are not necessarily museum apps. We tried to cast a wide net in everything we did, not just the app, but, you know, looking at, you know, what are the apps that we use most commonly, and what about them do we like? And a lot of that was hard to squish into the museum app.
What's the user experience, like what other museums' user experiences did you look at and spend?
Well, actually, a lot has, since we did our first review about 2 years ago, we started working on this, and honestly, it was not awesome. At least the ones that were free and available for download. I think there are a lot that are, you have to be at the museum and check out the device, and we didn't really look at those. We just looked at the ones we could. We like looked at the Guggenheim, and we looked at the Met, and we looked at MoMA, and we liked a lot that were for special exhibitions mostly. So there's like one called AbX from MoMA that was like their favorite, and then, but since then a lot more at the new LACMA app, you know, is really good. You know, if you wanted to look at that, I think. But we kind of went our own way in a lot of ways. Mhm.
So you mentioned getting stuck in the weeds quite a bit,
Mhm.
or and so I wonder how you pull yourself out of that.
Mhm.
And I wonder if being so brand new and having this clean slate and knowing that you keep iterating and iterating, I think some like, you know, what helped pull you out of the weeds, knowing that there is no final destination. so new?
Yeah, well, part of it was urgency in that we were opening and we knew that we had to get it done, and then we started focusing a lot on ticketing, which took our kind of eyes off of the app. But it was actually, I would say, the designers that got more in the weeds than we did. You know, we would send back comments and we'd say, okay, just take our comments and build that, and then they would like integrate all of our comments into the wireframes and then send it back for more comments, and we were kept trying to like just build it, just build it, just build it. And you know, they like really wanted to like get it perfect and have like these perfect wireframes, which you know is never going to happen because we knew that things would change and everything, but we needed to have something to launch with because we'd put it in all of our press materials and everything, that we were going to have this app and that it was going to have these tours in it, so you know it had to launch. So eventually that helped, but we did, whenever you do this, you know, you're pushing stuff to phase 2, phase 3, you know, phase 5, and so we did a lot of that. So a lot of the features like you know, where it tells you the weather and all of that stuff, that is down the road. And then they designed this beautiful menu system that we were like, forget it, do it later. But we are trying to think about this and the website more as a continually evolving organism, and it's okay if it's not perfect right up front, and really try to take feedback, you know, from the visitors and from our visitor services associates in terms of how to improve it. And they've already suggested several things, so it's great. Thank you.
Good morning. Welcome to MN Artists Relaunch, how building a digital community served to reboot a real community. My name is Jehra Patrick, and I'm MN Artists Program Director, and I'm joining you from the Walker Art Center here in Minneapolis. Everyone can hear me okay? All right, great. I also welcome you to connect this session to a broader conversation by using these handles or hashtags. So I'm really excited to be here at MCN 2015 and think that this year's theme is particularly relevant for MN artists who has long integrated physical and digital counterpoints within our program structure. In the next 10 minutes, I'll give you a brief introduction to MN Artists, our Rebuild project, and how the program's philosophy incorporates an online-offline balance at every level. I'll then share how a living community was impacted by the project and how this project models online-offline harmony that could be replicated or adopted within other museums or organizations. MN Artists is a project of the Walker Art Center and the McKnight Foundation, which originally launched in 2001. We are a museum-born, foundation-funded project, and we've been at the forefront of artist participation online since our inception. We're a digital community, but we're also a functioning panorama of the Midwest's real art-making community. We've long invested in creating an online-offline loop with a history of live events that were aimed to gather artists in person while the website served as this digital hub or watering hole. We relaunched this decade-old platform just last November in 2014 with a generous grant from the Institute of Museum and Library Services. And in doing so, we incorporated online-offline strategies that reflect on the changing needs of museums, artists, and digital participation within our current landscape. When we were relaunching the site, we ingrained this online-offline dynamic into the program's ethos and consciously created opportunities for these arenas to not only complement one another, but to blur, loop, and connect in ways more thoughtful than in the past. This philosophy is evident in our 3 key programmatic areas, which include our digital platform or digital community, our arts journalism, and our public programs, as well as their dissemination throughout the last year. MN Artists' digital platform was built informed by the language and behaviors of a real community. Through deep research, working with artists and practitioners, we identified a software infrastructure and taxonomy for mnartists.org, which organizes the site's menuing and terminology to mirror real artistic communities of our art scene. The browsing filters also articulate cultural categories relevant to artists to pursue all aspects of an artistic career, from producing and sharing work, to applying to opportunities, to attending events, to finding other artists to follow or collaborate with, and to reading reviews and topical issues. Just like in real life, we know that artists aren't limited by one artistic discipline, and the new mnartist.org is built with community and content filters that reflect the overlapping communities, mingling identities, multiple roles that also exemplify the varying modes of artistic practice. And they're meant to be used in collaboration and combination. For example, our user CMS only attributes artistic roles to users as they upload content associated with that role. In other words, you're only a painter when you upload a painting, but you could also be a painter, a curator, and a jeweler all at the same time and be found in all of those categories. Relaunching mnartist.org included more than just rebuilding the software and site functionality to reflect our community's behaviors and industry jargon. It also required community participation. Rather than migrate all these accounts over en masse, we asked our user base of artists to individually rejoin or to migrate, which might mean registering or starting fresh, to identify our active community. After 13 years of growth, without a user delete button on the site, it was important for us to really ask our community who they are now. And we are reinvesting in this renewed resource, so we also wanted to ask our community to reinvest with us. This action of opting in was crucial to the project. Artists can self-appoint that they are a part of a community by joining. Intrinsic to mnArtist programs is our commissioned arts journalism, which brings topical issues and real conversation occurring here in the arts community to a nationally visible digital audience. Our articles offer in-depth coverage of relevant issues in artistic practice and offer insights into the region's cultural life to a wide audience of readers through reviews, features, profiles, and topical columns. The arts writing published on mnartist.org brings together a wide range of both local and national voices, from respected critics and academics to emerging artists and writers, who all have opportunity to craft their published pieces with the benefit of a very lavish hands-on service from our editor. Located between artists' events and the work that actually fuels this scene, our arts writing offers not only a means to foreground the conversations happening here, but it also serves as a digital record that archives our ever-evolving scene. Our public programs or offline series offer entry points into these extended conversations. Starting in January 2015, mnartist.org introduced a new live public program series that delves into issues of digital participation, arts journalism, as well as practical and topical issues pertinent to working artists. Within the past year, these programs have brought artists and cultural producers together to talk candidly about the issues relevant across artistic fields, asking questions like, what's the difference between a community and a network? Do artists need a digital strategy? Does the documentation of our artwork have a life of its own online? And does local matter when you're writing for a borderless digital audience? These conversations enforced assumptions that we had about our community's interests. We learned that while artists are fluent in social media and digital promotion of their work, that the interpersonal really matters, and that no website would really be able to substitute those personal connections valuable to our artist's career, but they can complement those connections with the opportunities that might be brought on by such a network. We applied these values into the dissemination of the website in the last year and employed online and offline strategies for outreach and awareness. Sure, we use things like newsletters, Facebook, and Twitter, but it's also really interpersonal. Our staff's always out into the field. We're going to shows, to events, to performances. We're out there talking to artists and organizations. We host hands-on workshops throughout the state, which encourage registration and also offer assistance in troubleshooting for new and returning members. We've complemented this in-person approach with a suite of help videos, which are available on the site, that really recreate that personal touch of the sessions, guiding users step by step through all aspects of the site. When reflecting on our first year of the project's launch and dissemination, we were able to measure community impact in 3 key areas: we invested in this real community through outreach, professional development tools, and regional journalism, and we asked our community to also reinvest in us by opting in, by showing up, and participating. In doing so, we were able to more accurately inventory the artistic activity throughout our state. Likewise, this current inventory proved to be really valuable for artists who were able to identify their peers as well as quantify merit within this ecosystem. Our project also provided a platform for artists and their voices to be visible. These voices are present within the site's structure, using their own terms, how they identify. It's relevant in our journalism, where they can grow and publish critical responses, and we also see their voices within our public programs, where they're leading conversations. We learned through our dissemination process that propagating the site's user base is not just achieved through digital outward pushing. It's also made possible through meeting people and sharing. Those very relationships that we wish to create through links and through search results on the site are more important when established from person to person and from organization to organization. Our Rebuild project also resulted in organizational impact by giving us the opportunity to rethink who our community is. So we no longer think of our community as like a facet count of registrants on the site. It's extended to and includes our social media audiences, our newsletter subscribers, our event attendees, our readership, which really means it's local and national artists and art enthusiasts, and the public at large. This is a much more nebulous audience that likes to receive information and participate in a whole range of ways. Our goal is not necessarily just increased registration anymore. That metric is really outmoded by a more fluid paradigm for engagement and also for reciprocal ownership. The program has given us an opportunity to rethink who we are as an organization and a division. We're no longer just a digital program created by a museum that lives in hybrid ether space. We are the community ourselves, and we are the welcoming crew for both the museum and for the local community. And in that way, we're thinking about encouraging artists to think about the various ways that a museum can advance artistic careers and stages through our multifaceted, ever-responsive program, whether doing so online or off. We welcome you to apply our philosophy to your digital projects. Our model is adaptable at every level. Our software is open source. Our community could be your community, and our program could operate within your museum to replicate it to suit the sort of content and constituency that you reach. If your museum would benefit from hosting a project like this, I welcome you to reach out to learn more. May I answer any questions? Yes?
So when you ask the community to reinvest, do they have to physically re-log in, and if they didn't, they were no longer part of the community?
Yeah, we had a really hard decision in that rather than moving over data on behalf of users, we had to ask them what content was relevant to them. And
what did you see the return?
we had estimated that we might lose quite a few, and that was, of course, devastating to our grantors who are used to reporting higher numbers every year. But we've seen a steady influx of returning registrants and new registrants, averaging about 300 a month, which has been keeping us on track throughout that first year. But yeah, tough call to make. Yeah. Any other questions? Yes?
I'm wondering what kind of staffing it takes to keep this moving?
That's a really great question. At present, it's 2.5 of us, actually. It's myself, a full-time site editor, and a half-time program coordinator. However, we are not doing continued web development in-house. We work with an external vendor to continue to maintenance the site and for ongoing development. Yeah, but we're a very small division within the Walker's Education and Community Programs Department.
Yes. The writing's commissioned, is that correct?
That is correct.
You're paying commission to the people that are contributing.
We do pay writers, and that's really remarkable within the Midwest, and I'm pleased to say we pay quite high given the other spectrum of blogs and arts journalism outlets. So that's something we're very proud of.
I assume that's grant funded, right?
It is, that's correct. Mm-hmm. Any other questions? Thank you so much for your time this morning.